I'm going to be talking about maple syrup urine disease today. This is the project that I've worked on throughout the semester. Okay, so what is maple syrup urine disease? A description of it: it's basically an amino acid disorder that specifically targets the branched chain amino acids leucine, isoleucine, and valine. Specifically, it's caused by an enzyme defect in the catabolic pathway of these amino acids. Basically, the body is unable to process these amino acids correctly, and the enzyme defect is in the catabolic pathway. The fact that it was an enzyme defect in the catabolic pathway of the 3 amino acids was discovered in 1960. It was originally thought to be some kind of neural disorder in 1954, but it wasn't until 1960 that they had discovered that by Schwang that it was an enzyme defect in the catabolic pathway. So this is typically seen in infants soon after birth. There are actually multiple types of this disease, but the most severe type and the most common type that is seen is the classic maple syrup urine disease. The prevalence, though, is 1 in 185,000 infants worldwide, so it's really not as common as one would think, although it is much more prevalent in the old order Mennonite population. They have an incidence rate of 1 in 380 infants having the disease. This is specifically for the old order Mennonite population. Some other names for MSUD include BCKD deficiency, branched chain ketoaciduria, branched chain alpha ketoacid dehydrogenase deficiency, and ketoacidemia. Excuse me. These are just some other names for MSUD, but typically it's commonly known, like if you can Google maple syrup urine disease and you'll find everything. Some of the most common symptoms of maple syrup urine disease include vomiting, lethargy, poor appetite, seizures, poor feeding, abnormal movements, delayed development, and like most severe cases, if left untreated, can lead to coma, and then in some of those cases can also lead to death. Okay, so the molecular cause of MSUD is basically due to 3 different genes. The genes are BCKDHA, BCKDHB, which stands for, branched chain ketoacid dehydrogenase A, dehydrogenase B, and DBT. The chromosomes that are affected in these genes are chromosome 19 for BCKDHA, chromosome 6 for BCKDHB, and chromosome 1 for DBT. And then on the right side, you can see the amino acid sequence that is affected in BCKDHA. So normally, when the protein functions correctly, it basically provides the instructions for making the alpha subunit part of the enzyme complex that is affected, but the enzyme complex is basically responsible for one of the steps in the normal breakdown of leucine, isoleucine, and valine, which I had talked about earlier. All 3 of these amino acids are obtained from our diet. They are found obviously in protein-rich foods such as milk, meat, and eggs. So normally that's the function of the protein. But MSUD is caused by mutations in that protein. So most BCKDHA mutations change a single amino acid in the alpha subunit of that enzyme complex. In the Old Order Mennonite population, this occurs frequently because, they, I guess, lack something that causes the protein to function normally. The most common mutation replaces tyrosine with asparagine at position 438 in the sequence. Mode of inheritance. This disorder, MSUD, is an autosomal recessive disorder, which means that both copies of the gene have the mutation. Also, in an autosomal recessive disorder, both parents are carriers of the gene, but you typically won't see any symptoms of the disease in the parents, so they won't necessarily have the disorder, but they are carriers, so that there's a potential for their kids to have that disorder. Here is a simple pedigree that illustrates this inheritance. As you can see, their couples don't necessarily have to have the disorder, but they can have kids who will have the disorder. So one parent can be a carrier, or both parents can be a carrier, and still the children will get, sometimes will get the disorder. There's a 25% chance that the child will get the disease if one of the parents is a carrier. Sometimes it doesn't, it just depends. Genetic testing for MSUD. In the U.S., all of the states screen newborns for MSUD through the state screening the state's newborn screening program. There are 117 clinical tests, 2 biochemical genetics tests, and 6 molecular genetic tests available. Basically, testing is done through a simple blood test that is taken shortly after birth. Early detection is crucial because that way treatment can begin as soon as possible, and therefore the infant is at benefit because the earlier you detect it, the sooner you can treat it. And then most parents will agree to the genetic testing because it's just a simple blood test, and it'll hurt the child, but it could save their life too. And here are my references. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. Thank you.